And let's just say there is a disaster. I'm not saying, to be accurate, that the medical training and application service is exactly NHS disaster. But if you saw the BBC news about it, all our aspiring future medics had their personal details published on an open website, courtesy of the NHS process. Mistakes happen. Sexual preferences, religion, what had that to do with applying for a job? Mistakes do happen, and when they're online, they can be quite big. We used to have a consultant when I was a medical student, and he was very, very good. And in the yearbook it said, mind like a supercomputer keeps making super mistakes. It's the same. If you've got a lot of data and somebody gets into it. So, what makes me think that it is a good idea in the conclusion? And I think it does depend, because you can't say all access is good. I think that would just be a terrible mistake. But if you turn it around 360 degrees, a bit as Mike has said, and you imagine the patient is in the centre, is it not incontestable that it's your record and your information? And I think it is. And we've already got rights that let you see your record and your information, so therefore why wouldn't it be better if you can see it as it is, as a living document changing day to day? And if you take that basis, then I think you can go forward. And getting the beginning right is always the most important thing. And there are some games of chess and whatever that you must get the beginning right, or you really couldn't win. And I think this has a beginning. Beginning is answered by the answer to question 9.9. Very tempted to point a finger and ask, but I won't. Of the Primus training needs analysis, I understand the importance of achieving the goal of data fit for sharing. I believe this is what it comes down to. It comes down to that first footstep. The data that we have on our systems must be fit for sharing, or these records in A&E can do more harm than good. And certainly, the trust and the usefulness of transferring from one GP to another is totally lost. And EMIS pairs is a system of verification, of doing that, but without it being explicit, without it being informed, and without it being consensual, I really believe clinicians are going to stand up and say, it isn't good enough. And the only reason it's not already nationally an explicit, informed, consensual process is because it costs so much money that the NHS is terrified. There isn't an ethicist in the country that I'm aware of, and Richard's better connected than I am, so maybe he knows somebody that is, but I don't know of any ethicist that says that it is right to publish data that the individual, whether they opt out or not, is unaware of the contents of it. You wouldn't get off with that in anything. And you certainly shouldn't get off with it when it's your personal details. So the first step must be in getting it right. In fact, if I find my little cutout here, a note of unresolved hesitation is still uppermost in mind, remembering that VAMP, and VAMP was one of the software suppliers, thought data was worth giving free PCs to for GPs. And that's how it all began. One of the software companies said, I would really like that data. Have a few PCs, all you have to do is sign up that we get a copy. And that was good enough for them. It was so good that the NHS thought this data was then worth paying VAMP for in cash. We seem to be heading towards the same system based on goodwill and altruism. And with that reward for the time and effort and expertise that has enabled the production and collection of this data in the first place. Currently in the domain of primary care, but for how much longer? Now, as I said, I've been with Colin and as the LMC's ICT representative for some time, and that was written as the LMC comment from what was called the Local Implementation Strategy Group in 1999. So how much really has moved on, and what could move it on? And I think there is something that can move it on. But I think it must be resourced. And I don't just mean in terms of money for GPs to do things. I know it looks like the fat cat again. But whatever we resource this to do, I think you must all be aware there will be something in healthcare that is not done while this process is being done. None of us are blameless. When we are measured on how good we are at vaccinating people for flu, how good we are for doing anything, I don't think there is any practice that gets 100% on everything every year. We are all constrained. If we do this, we won't be doing something else. We must be sure that what we're giving up is actually worth giving up to do this. And the NHS is terrified of looking at the funding. And the doctors among us will say, we saw an article which said it would take 100 years of GP time for each GP to put their practices information on them. That's a non-starter. But I don't think it is that bad. I actually think a face-to-face, consensual, explicit agreement, are you happy that is your medical record and benefit bona fide, and you've got one online. You do it a few more times, you've got a lot more online. Get other practices doing it locally, you've got a lot online. But to pretend it's a cost-neutral exercise in time, to pretend other things won't get lost in the process, is wishful thinking. So I think there should be a proposal for an agreed EHR. Face-to-face, agree with the patient, and then you do with that package what you want. You might even, perish the thought, give it to the NHS spine and hope they don't do an MTAS with it. You might just keep it on web servers for EMIS and let who you want look at it. I think that part is fine. What comes after is up to you. That part is the beginning, and that part is what the LMC supports. Thank you.